What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Real Bodybuilding Podcast, and I want to give you guys a quick breakdown of the Texas Pro this weekend. I won't be here to do any live feeds tomorrow, and I don't think I'll be able to do a post-show wrap-up for prejudge or anything like that. So I just want to do this breakdown because I think they're fun, and I can give you guys my opinion on as to what I think is going to shake out with the show. You guys can hit up the comments section below and give me your opinions. If you think I'm crazy, if you think I'm spot on, give me your top three, your top five, and we'll see who's right at the end of the day. Maybe we'll make some bets. No, I'm just joking. But okay, let's get into it because it's a small lineup, but it is a interesting show. There's a lot of storylines here that I think could make the show really, really interesting. So the first thing we're going to do is just cover some of the guys. We'll go over the storylines as we do that. So first thing I did was I went to Bodybuilders Without Borders Instagram. You guys can check it out there. Follow him. He does a really good job of covering the shows and who's doing them and post shows with the scorecards and everything. He does a very good job of kind of keeping everybody up to date in the bodybuilding world. So this is the 10-man Texas Pro. And like I said, there's some really interesting things here. So first thing we're going to do is go to Ian, who could win the show. This is Ian's most recent pick that he's posted of his back. So Ian's got a interesting thing to do here. Everybody knows what he's going to look like. Only thing Ian can do now is get a little bit tighter from last week. I think that was the only knock, is that he wasn't 100%. I don't think he was far off 100%. I think people were a little bit more critical than they could have been. I think he was pretty close, but I do think he could have been a little drier. But he's definitely a favorite to win the show. And I think the main storyline is between him and Steve. And it's interesting because Ian is trying to propel his career and end up on top and get to the top and get to that elite status. Some of you would already have him there. I would say he's there as well, but he's trying to get into that top 6 at the Olympia, top 5 at the Olympia. That's where every bodybuilder wants to be. And Steve Kuklow is standing in his way because Steve placed 6th at the Olympia in 2019 and Ian placed 7th last year. So in a bodybuilder's mind, and the way Ian's probably thinking of it is, I got to beat Steve. That puts me one place higher at the Olympia, and it gets me one place closer to that elite top 6 that everybody wants to be in. So this is the main storyline of the show. Now, the flip side of that story is Steve Kuklow, who looks amazing. I haven't seen him on stage since last year at the Arnold's where he took 4th. But right here, he still looks like he has all his size. His conditioning looks good. I was a little worried because we haven't seen him on stage since, last March. But I worry when I see people doing, I see him doing political stuff and I see him doing business stuff. And I worry when I see bodybuilders doing too many things outside of bodybuilding, because unless you're a phenom or a genetic freak, it can affect your bodybuilding career and it can affect the way you look. But looking at these photos with Steve, he looks as good as he's ever looked. And it's not going to be an easy feat for Ian to beat Steve because he is a great bodybuilder. He's very complete. And he's very big. He's like, I think Steve is a little deceiving because when you look at him on Instagram, he doesn't look overly massive, but he is like 6 foot, 6'1" or something like that. You see here his weight's 285, but the interesting thing about Steve is his 285 is very broad. He's got a very big structure. So he's got very broad shoulders. When he stands on stage, he's an imposing figure. And I do think he's going to outmass, I don't want to say outmass Ian in muscularity, but he will outmass Ian in structure. He will definitely take up more room only because of his height. Ian is a very wide guy as well. It's going to be really interesting to see them next to each other because they both have wide structures. And their muscularity is both very good. But so I'm interested to see them next to each other. It's going to be a really, really good matchup. And I honestly, Ian asked me on the podcast that we did yesterday if he thought I could beat him. And I don't know. I don't want to say he can't. But Steve Kuklow is a very, very good bodybuilder. And that's evident, obviously, by his top 6 placing at the Olympia and numerous wins. But Ian is on the rise. And I think this is, like I said, this is a storyline. So the main storyline here is Ian is trying to get to that place where Steve is, and Steve is going to try and hold him off and say, nope, this is my spot still. So it makes the show really, really interesting to me. So to me, that's the most exciting part. Now, there are some other storylines that we need to cover. And one of the main ones being Phil Klahar. Phil Klahar last week looked incredible in Tampa, and a lot of you actually had Phil winning the show over Ian. Now, I think the judges made a good call. I think everything, this was his conditioning last week in Tampa. I think everything he did was great. I think his conditioning was great. I think his muscularity is great. I think his structure is great. I do think Ian pulled out the win. I think the judges know what they're doing. But this is another really interesting storyline in Texas is, can Phil overcome Ian now? And can he get that back if he thinks he got robbed last week? Because bodybuilders do, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe Phil thinks he won. I'm sure all his fans think he won. He wants to get it back, and he's going to go to Texas and try and get it back. Now, if he can beat Ian, does that also mean he can beat Steve? So, because like I said, I think Ian and Steve are very close in how good they are on stage. Now, if Phil is close to beating Ian, or at least in Phil's mind, he's close to beating Ian, or Phil's fans think he's close to beating Ian, does that mean, does Phil and Phil's fans think that he can also beat Steve Kuklow? Because now that puts Phil Klahar into another stratosphere from where he was. And especially as a 46 or 47-year-old bodybuilder, to all of a sudden walk on and beat two guys that are in the top 10 at the Olympia is pretty incredible. So this is really interesting for Phil. I'm sure it's something he's been looking for and waiting for, and he's going to get his chance this weekend to show everybody. Now, another storyline in the show is Martin Fitzwater. Martin Fitzwater is a new guy, hasn't competed yet. This is his pro debut. For those of you who don't know him, he trains with Brett Wilkin, who just shocked everybody at the Chicago Pro. As you can see, these guys here are taking a bath together. I don't know. That looks kind of weird. Maybe I don't know. That's the kind of support you need, I guess. But anyway, so no, these guys are best friends, are training partners, and they crush it together. If you guys have seen any of their videos, they train like animals. So a lot of people are expecting Martin to make the same splash that Brett did. And although I don't think Martin is as big structurally as Brett, he is very muscular and he does have a very good physique. And I do think he is going to shock some people. Now, do I think he can beat Phil, Ian, or Steve? I'm not sure. I don't think he's big enough to beat Ian yet. I don't think he's big enough to beat Steve yet. Could he structurally beat Phil Klahar? It's a definite maybe. I mean, here you see a back shot with Brett, and they compare very well. If Martin's back may not be even a little better. So if Brett is, taking out people in Chicago, there's no reason why I don't think Martin can take people out in Texas this weekend. So here is, I think, some of his more recent shots. This is 2021. As you can see, tiny waist, big, full muscle bellies, not really lacking anywhere. He's got a good chest, good arms, good legs. Maybe you could use a little more hamstring, but I can't really see in that photo. It's just, he's a great bodybuilder. As you can see here, here's a front shot, front double. He pulls a good vacuum. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Martin brings. I do think Martin could be as high as third place. And I think that's the highest I would place him, unless for some reason Steve or Ian is way off and he's 100%. I don't think he's ready or at the level yet where he can beat Ian or Steve, which is not a knock on him at all. You're talking about two Olympians, but this is a major storyline. Like, a guy's pro debut is a really big deal. You know what I mean? This is a big deal in this kid's life, and he wants to make a huge impact. And as you guys can see, like, Brett just did it. And because they're friends, I'm sure he wants to do the same thing, So this is a really big storyline. That hamstring is good. Sorry, here's a better shot of that hamstring. But yeah, so this is an interesting storyline also that I think we're all kind of looking forward to, or those of us that know who Martin is are looking forward to see what he can bring. So to me, that is the top four. The four guys I just mentioned are the top four, and only because when I go to Hassan, look, Hassan is amazing. Okay, the physique is like on another level, muscularity wise. Lots of detail through the chest, through the shoulders. Looks like he's got some better detail through his abs here. Leg looks a little drier in the top, but it's hard to know if he's going to show up. What Hassan needs to start knocking people out is this type of detail in his lower body. Judges want to see these striations in his shoulders, these striations in his chest, this really dry look all through his upper body here. They want to see that through the legs and through the glutes and through the hamstrings. And until Hassan can do that, I don't think he's going to beat the people he should be beating. Also don't know if competing at every single show this year is going to help him get better. At this point, I'm sure he's qualified for the Olympia through points. And maybe that was his goal, was just to get to the Olympia. And I'm pretty sure he's there. I just don't know if he's going to be any better conditioning wise. And if he's not, I don't think he can beat Martin or Phil or Ian or Steve. I think he needs to bring that conditioning. Now, if for some reason his conditioning is better, even if it's 5% better, he could beat Martin and he could beat Phil. But we need to see this level of conditioning in his pecs and shoulders and arms into his lower body before we can say that. So because we haven't seen it yet, and only going by past history and not going by what he's capable of, but going by more what I've seen, I'm going to put Hassan in, I want to say fifth, but I also don't know how big Martin is going to be on stage. Hassan's muscularity may overcome Martin, but I'm going to err on the side of conditioning here. And I have a feeling Martin's going to come in peeled because he trains with Brett and because he's going to want, the thing is, the pressure is on Martin to, if you're friends with somebody, you train together and your buddy just does a show and shows up peeled out of his mind and shocks the world, you want to do the same thing. So I think Martin's going to show up in his best shape, and I think that will overcome Hassan. From there, we have Muhammad Al-Imam, and he is another one like Hassan who's done every single show or almost every show this year. And last showing wasn't as good. He looks like maybe he's getting tired. Maybe he's been dieting too long. I don't know. But the last show he competed at, I didn't feel like he was as good as he was the previous shows. Again, if he doesn't bring up that conditioning or get back to where he was at the beginning of the season in Indy or New York, I don't think he will be able to beat Hassan or any of the other top four. So I'm going to have him in sixth. From there, we have Kevin Jordan. Kevin Jordan, great physique, great structure, but needs more mass. This physique with more muscle, as long as he could keep the waist in check, it really will do some damage at shows. But with the way bodybuilding is nowadays, this physique is great, but just needs more thickness, and it's going to just take time. So I don't think he'll be able to overcome Al-Imam or the rest of the guys. I have Kevin in seventh. From there, I have Douglas Frushie. I've never seen him compete before. This is the most recent photo I could find of him. This is 8 weeks out. Good physique, good legs. Waist looks good in this shot. I couldn't find too many physique shots on his page. I don't really know where to place him because I haven't really seen him on stage. If I look at something like this, I think the waist may be a little thick for the size of the arms. Usually, if you have a thicker waist, you want massive arms to really change the illusion of things. If your arms aren't massive and you have a little bit thicker waist, then you get the reverse illusion. And I'm only saying that because I know it by my own personal issues myself. So I'm not knocking this guy at all. I just make an observation based on what I've seen in my physique and others. But I don't know if he's going to have enough Matt, he might beat Kevin. I don't know for sure. He looks like he might be thick in the legs, which could be good for him, but he'll be at the back of the pack. And then from there, we have Dorian Haywood. Dorian Haywood could creep up past Kevin Jordan, maybe past Al-Imam, and possibly past Hassan, depending on what show he's in or what condition he's in. But again, he's competed a bunch of times this year, so he may be just as tired as the other guys. And when I say tired, guys, I want you guys to understand something. When I say tired, it doesn't mean tired like sleep tired. It doesn't mean tired like body tired. It doesn't mean tired like I don't want to train or I don't want to diet. This isn't a matter of how much heart these guys have. When I say tired, I mean physique tired. And what I mean by that is there is a level where your body will go up and then start to come down, no matter what you do. And anybody can tell you that. And that's why we take breaks. So some people get better as they compete. Okay. But there's still a limit to that. Like, let's take Ian, for example. Ian's always talking about he gets better as the season goes on. Ian's doing Tampa, then Texas, but he's going to shut it down for a little bit. Now, not completely shut it down, but he's going to go home and get a little bit of a rest before he gets into the Arnold and then the Olympia. Now, even if he did that, and then there was 2 more shows 8 weeks from that, I personally don't think he would be better, because you can only peak and come off and peak and come off so many times in a span of time before your body starts, like, it's almost like your skin starts to get thick. You start to hold a little bit more water under the skin. So that's why the skin looks thicker. And I don't mean your skin actually gets thick, but you start to hold a little more water under the skin. It just doesn't look as crisp and clean as it does when your body feels fresh. So when I say tired, it's your body is tired. It's not a matter of your brain or your heart or how much passion you have or any of that stuff. So I want you guys just to know that ahead of time. So we're not, I'm not talking poorly about any of these guys. I just feel like if you compete think about it, if you competed at a show in May, that means you started dieting probably in March or February, most likely. So that means you've been dieting from February all the way until August, and you've peaked multiple times in that time. And it's just not, it's not as easy to be great when you've gone up and down numerous times over the course of, 8 months. So I'm going to say Dorian Haywood is going to be in the pack somewhere with Mo Al-Imam and Hassan. And I feel like those 3 all have the same story. They've just been competing a long time this year, and they may all not be able to nail their condition 100%. So that really breaks down the show, guys. It's going to be a really interesting one. We have, like I said, these 10 guys here and some interesting storylines. Now, my final predictions, and this part really sucks because I'm friends with Steve and I'm friends with Ian. So I know somebody's going to be upset, and it's okay because I know they're both grown men and they will forgive me. But I do think they're going to go 1 and 2. Obviously, I think everybody thinks that. That's not groundbreaking information. I'm sorry to Phil Klahar. I think Phil Klahar has a great physique, and I'm blown away personally. I'm 42 myself. I'm blown away seeing a guy who's 47 years old go out there and crush guys, in some instances half his age or a little less, but to look that good at 47 is absolutely unbelievable. I think Phil could do some real damage. I think I personally saw the best Phil I was going to see last week. This is my thought process for you guys wondering. I think we saw the best Phil Klahar last week that I've ever seen. And that wasn't the best Ian I've seen. So I think if Ian is a couple % sharper, I don't know if Phil can overcome him unless for some reason he gets even better than last week, which, if it's possible, I mean, we got a good show on our hands, right? But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Phil will look like he looked last week because I think that's his peak. Ian may look a little better. As he told me in his podcast, he's going to be down a few pounds. So that means he'll be sharper. Hopefully that doesn't flatten him out. If it flattens him out, Phil can easily jump over. But if it doesn't flatten him out, I'm going to assume Ian is on stage just a little sharper with the same fullness he had last week, which I don't think Phil can beat. So that puts Ian at least second. Now, Steve Kuklow, judging from his photos, looks like he hasn't lost a step. And the fan in me wants to see Steve win, because this is the shitty thing. So as a friend to Ian, I'm a little closer with Ian, obviously, because we do the podcast every week. We talk all the time. As a friend, I want to see Ian win, because I really want to see his career. I want to see him get catapulted into that top 4, top 6 at the Olympia and really shine, right? I'm friends with Steve, and I love seeing Steve in that top 6 group. I was really happy for him when he placed in the top 6. So the friend in me is like, not sure where to go, but I'm like, I hope Ian can get back-to-back wins and keep his trajectory going. But the fan in me, okay, this is a different thing. The fan in me wants Steve Kuklow to win, because I want to see them compete again at the Olympia. If you're a fan of bodybuilding, your ultimate goal is to have the deepest Olympia lineup you can possibly put together. And it would be awesome to have Steve at the Olympia. And if Steve can't win tomorrow, I don't know if he can win the Arnold. So then that puts him out of the Olympia, and that kind of sucks. So this is the conundrum I have in my mind. Do I want my friend to win, or do I want to see my other friend win and get to the Olympia? So I'm going to pull out all the emotion and just be objective. I think objectively, if we see the same Steve Kuklow that we saw at the Olympia in 2019, I'm not sure Ian can overcome Steve yet, but Steve has to be in his best shape. If Steve's conditioning is off at all, Ian will beat him. That I know for sure. So, but if they're both 100%, I think Steve could still edge him out. But I'm going to tell you guys the same thing I told Ian on the podcast yesterday. I really don't know who's going to win. These guys are so close. It's not that their physiques look the same, but they're just so good and so on the same path trajectory wise that it's hard to say, this guy's definitely win or that guy's definitely gonna win. But I'm gonna say I think Kuklow is gonna take this one if he's 100%. Ian second, Phil Klahar. Now the Phil Klahar, Martin Fitzwater storyline is interesting too, because Phil wants to be Ian, but I think Martin wants to beat Phil, or Martin wants to stand next to Ian, even probably, you know what I mean, or stand next to Ian and Steve. I'm going to assume that Phil's going to come in the same shape he came in last week, in which I think that means he can beat Martin. So I'm going to go Steve, Ian, Phil, Martin, Hassan. That's going to be my top 5. And those are all based on saying they're all 100%. The thing about the show is if anybody is off, all of those placings could be mixed. So it's going to be interesting to see where the placings shake out. And so that's my Texas breakdown. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And have fun watching the show tomorrow, guys. It's going to be a good one. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, share with your friends, and like the video. And if you get a chance, check out the description for all the different links to all the different places you can find Hostile and myself. And lastly, check out hostile.com for our new line of supplements and all of our apparel and gear. Thanks again for watching.